Hello everyone and welcome to this very special episode by J&D Hauntings. This is the first in our story series called Jay's Haunted Tales. In this series I'll be reading you some stories that I've created, and I'll also be reading others to you. Some we're reading at locations that we go to, and others, like now, sitting joining me in front of the fire as we read them to you. Sitting here in front of the fake fire as we read them to you. This first story is based and set in the grounds of an old church, the ruins of a church long since defunct and long since damaged, full of sorrow and poor bitter murder, along with the sadness of a child. Let's see if you're brave enough to hear the story of the girl at the altar. There was a place deep in the countryside that locals avoided even on bright summer afternoons. The church had once stood proudly upon a low hill overlooking the valley, its bell carrying across the fields of wheat and grazing sheep. Now only broken walls remained, ivy strangled ancient stones, and thorn bushes grew through shattered windows. The roof had long ago since collapsed, leaving the nave open to the sky. The villagers called it St. Margaret's Ruin, but most simply called it the Crying Church. Few stayed there longer than necessary, and people claimed they heard weeping from among the stones. Some swore they even saw a young girl wandering between the graves at dusk. Others spoke of cold hands brushing their shoulders when nobody stood nearby. The older villagers would only shake their heads when asked about the place. "It remembers what happened to it," they would say, and what had happened there was terrible. The tragedy began in the 14th century, and the village priest, a man named Father Edmund, to the villagers he appeared kind and respectable. He blessed newborns, he led weddings, he buried the dead, and people trusted him, especially the children. Among those children was a girl named Eleanor. She was only 12 years old, bright-eyed and gentle, and she helped tend flowers around the church and would often help the elderly villagers with chores. Everyone knew her smile, everyone except Father Edmund, who truly understood the darkness that hid behind his friendly face. For months he had watched the girl, spoken to her alone, invented reasons to keep her behind after services. And at first, Eleanor thought nothing of it, until she began to feel uncomfortable around him, and afraid. But in those days, children were taught to obey priests, and priests were trusted above all others. One autumn evening, Edmund convinced Eleanor to meet him at the church after sunset. He claimed he needed help preparing decorations for a holy feast. The trusted girl arrived carrying flowers, and she never returned home. The next morning, villagers entered the church and found horror waiting for them. Eleanor lay beside the altar, dead. Her dress stained with blood, her face frozen in terror. Not far away, they discovered Father Edmund. His face was covered with deep scratches, his robes torn. The priest immediately claimed Eleanor had attacked him. He told everyone that she had suddenly become violent, possibly mad or possessed. He said he acted in self-defense. Most believed him. After all, he was a priest, and Eleanor was only a child who could no longer tell her side of the story. The villagers buried her in sacred ground beside the church. Life should have continued, but something had awakened within those ancient walls. Something angry. Something that remembered. The hauntings began within days. Candles extinguished themselves whenever Edmund approached the altar. Church bells rang in empty towers. Books flew off shelves. Crosses crashed from walls. Parishioners spoke of hearing sobbing beneath sermons. Sometimes the sound became screaming. Animals refused to enter the churchyard. Dogs growled at invisible figures, and horses panicked near the gates. Yet, the strangest events occurred during services. Edmund would begin preaching only for unseen forces to hurl objects from across the room. Candles toppled, benches shifted, windows shattered without warning. Several villagers claimed they saw a blood-stained child standing beside the priest, waiting, watching. The church soon emptied, and fear spread faster than any plague, and still the hauntings worsened. Father Edmund knew why, because every night she came for him. Eleanor, not as she had been in life, but pale, broken, covered in blood, standing beside his bed, watching from dark corners, appearing in mirrors. The scratches upon his face would never heal properly. Whenever they began to fade, fresh wounds opened as though invisible fingernails clawed his flesh. Sleep abandoned him, sanity followed. Yet his dark desires remained. And despite everything, he arranged another secret meeting with another young girl, another innocent victim. The night of his death was cold and windless. The church stood empty. Moonlight spilt through the stained glass. Father Edmund waited beside the altar. He believed that the village child would soon arrive. Instead, he heard footsteps, soft, slow. Approaching from the shadows, a figure stood near the altar, small, female, wearing a white dress, and the priest smiled. For a moment, he believed it was the girl he was expecting. Then, the figure turned. The smile vanished. Blood covered her face. Her skull was crushed from where she had been struck. Dark eyes stained from beneath tangled hair. Eyes filled not with fear, but judgment. Eleanor! The name escaped his lips as a whisper. The ghost smiled. Not kindly, not warmly. The smile of someone remembering every second of their suffering. Edmund stumbled backwards. The church doors suddenly slammed shut. The sound echoed like thunder. He rushed towards them. Benches scraped across stones by themselves, one after another, piling up against the exits, barricading every escape. The priest screamed, pulled, pushed, banged. Nothing moved. Behind him, Eleanor remained standing near the altar, watching, waiting. The candles began to flare, one by one, tiny flames stretching unnaturally high. Tapestries caught first, then wooden beams. Fire raced through the ancient church, heat exploding all around him. Smoke filled the air, Edmund shrieking for mercy, for forgiveness, for God. But only Eleanor answered. She stood untouched among the flames, the ghost of the child that he had murdered, the child sent to cast judgment. As the roof collapsed around him, witnesses outside claimed they heard two sounds carried among the night wind: the screams of a dying priest and the laughter of a small girl. By the morning, the church was a blackened ruin. Father Edmund's remains were found among the ashes. The church was never rebuilt. Centuries passed and the story became legend. Yet, strange things continued. Visitors heard crying among the stones. Flowers upon Eleanor's grave appeared freshly arranged. Photographs taken would reveal pale figures standing beside the graves. And there were always sightings of a young girl near the ruined altar. The place became known throughout the region as cursed. People came for curiosity, but they never stayed long. Then came Bill Thompson, a groundskeeper in his early 40s, quiet, broad-shouldered, weathered by grief. 8 years earlier, his own daughter had been murdered. She too had been 12 years old, and she too had died near a church. A man had taken her life before fleeing. Though eventually caught and imprisoned, the loss had shattered Bill's world. His marriage had failed, friends drifted away, and nothing filled the emptiness. When he accepted responsibility for maintaining the old church grounds, he expected more than mowing grass and clearing rubbish. Ghost stories meant nothing to him, at least, not then. His first sighting happened 3 months after taking the job. Bill was removing litter from among the graves. The afternoon was quiet, and birds were singing overhead. Nothing unusual. Then he noticed a young girl standing near the ruined altar. She wore an old white dress, her back faced him. Thinking a child had wandered onto the site, Bill approached. Excuse me?" The girl slowly turned. His blood froze. Half her face was crushed, blood stained her skin, eyes black with sadness stared into his own. Then she vanished, simply disappeared, gone. Bill stood alone, heart pounding, unable to explain what he had seen. He then began researching library archives, historical records, church documents, even old newspapers, anything connected to the ruin. Eventually he uncovered Eleanor's story, her age, her death, and the priest's lies discovered years later. Everything. And when he learned that she had only been 12 years old, something broke inside him. Because his own daughter had also been 12, the same age, the same innocence stolen, the same future destroyed. From that day, Bill treated the churchyard differently, especially the altar. He cleaned away weeds, removing rubbish, repairing fallen stones, and every week before leaving, he placed a small bundle of fresh flowers where Eleanor had died. No reason, no expectation, simply kindness. Something no one had shown her when she was needing it the most. Years passed, and many times Bill saw Eleanor, sometimes standing among the graves, and sometimes near the altar, sometimes watching from beneath ancient trees. She never harmed him, never approached him, and never spoke to him, only watched him. Silent, lonely, waiting. Whenever he left fresh flowers, they were often found arranged neatly by morning, despite no visitors entering the grounds. Bill stopped questioning it. Instead, he accepted her presence as one wounded soul, recognizing another. Then came the anniversary. The night his daughter had died. 9 years to the day, and the first time Bill remained after sunset, as darkness slowly swallowed the ruin. Then the sky filled with stars. An icy breeze drifted through the broken walls. The churchyard became silent. Bill placed flowers before the altar, then sat upon a fallen stone. In his hands he held a photograph, his daughter, smiling beside him at the seaside. The picture he had carried everywhere. For a long time he simply stared at it, remembering, missing her, feeling the same ache, eventually tears running down his cheeks. "I still think of you every day," he whispered. The wind died and the temperature dropped, and Bill looked up. Eleanor stood before him. Not 20 feet away, her damaged face visible in the moonlight. The wounds that had killed her marked her pale features. Yet, for the first time, Bill felt no fear whatsoever, only sadness. Understanding, slowly he stood, holding out the photograph. This was my daughter. The ghost stared at the picture. The ruined church remained utterly silent. Then something remarkable happened. The blood faded, not completely, only slightly. Enough to reveal the child she once was, a frightened girl, lost and alone. Bill smiled sadly. You were both the same age. Eleanor looked at him, and for the first time her eyes seemed softer. Not haunted, not angry, simply sad. Like a child who had been waiting centuries for someone to see her. Not as a ghost, not as a legend, but as a victim, as a daughter. After that night, everything changed. The villagers still feared the ruin, and visitors still fled after hearing cries among the graves. But Bill discovered something no one else ever would. Eleanor's spirit no longer appeared frightening to him. Whenever he visited, she would sometimes appear nearby, standing quietly among flowers, watching him work, sometimes sitting upon broken stones, always silent and always gentle. And occasionally, when Bill left fresh flowers beside the altar, he would find her standing there. No blood, no horror, no anger. Only a small smile, a child's smile. The smile that she should have been allowed to keep. The smile stolen from her centuries ago. Bill never told anyone. They would never believe him. And perhaps some things are not meant for the world, only for those who understand grief. Years later, people still speak of the ruined haunted church. They still tell stories of curses and ghosts, of screams in the darkness and shadows among graves. And perhaps those stories are true. But there's another story too, only few know, of a murdered child who finally found someone willing to remember her, and of a grieving father who discovered that even among ruins, sorrow does not always have to stand alone. For on quiet evenings, as sunlight fades across the broken altar, visitors occasionally glimpse two figures standing together among the ancient stones. A man holding flowers, and beside him a young girl in a white dress, watching the sunset, not in fear, not in anger, but in peace. Well, I hope you enjoyed that first of many stories from Jay's Haunted Tales. And I look forward to bringing you more stories. And if there's anything you'd like to hear, perhaps there's a particular story you'd like to hear. Or perhaps you have a story of your own that you'd like me to read out for you. Then please do let us know. And it might appear in the videos. But until then, sleep well and join us next time at our next haunted location.